Hello and welcome to Wccftech Interviews. My name is Dave, and today I am here with someone that everyone who has ever watched a fighting game tournament should already know, James Chen. James?
Hello, how's it going out there? Thanks for having me on here.
I am super happy to have you. And today we're going to be talking about James's career in the fighting game community, the FGC itself, and where we can see the fighting game community go after COVID and a number of other scandals that have happened over the last couple of years. So James, could you please get us started by telling us a little bit about how you got first involved in the FGC?
Ooh.
I know. The summary, you know?
Sit back and let me tell you the tale. No? I mean, honestly, I've been part of FGC probably even before there was an FGC. I played fighting games since the original Street Fighter II World Warrior. I mean, who knew that it would become what it's become at this point in time? It was just a game that came out. My older brother was going to college at the time. I was in high school. And the game came out, and it showed up at the arcade on campus. At his campus, he went to UCLA. By the way, UCLA used to have an amazing arcade. It's why I went to UCLA as well.
Once upon a time, eh?
Arcade. But yeah, he told me about this game called Street Fighter II, and then when he came home the next time, to visit, family and everything like that. We went and tried to find it in an arcade. We found it. I played it. I loved it and became obsessed with it. The two of us were just completely delved into Street Fighter. And honestly, it just never stopped. And as the older I got, I started writing articles. I was joining those news groups, Alt Games, SF2, on the internet, on the brand new interwebs and everything. And from there, I just started writing FAQs, always doing, trying to spread the knowledge of the games, the understanding of the systems, playing it constantly. And it kind of snowballed. I got involved with a lot of the early events like Battle by the Bay, which is B3. And then, eventually once streaming started, I was at a weekly gathering at someone's garage in Southern California. And Alex Vai was trying to explain, Alex Vai, one of the greatest fighting game players that the US has ever produced, who currently is one of the heads of Level Up series right now that puts on Wednesday night fights every week. He was like trying to explain what he was doing. And he's like, I can't explain and play at the same time. James, get on. You're good at explaining things. Cause I had history of the FAQs and everything like that. So he's like, jump on the mic and start explaining things. So, I jumped on, started talking, and kind of found out that I liked it. I liked talking about the game, talking about the strategies, the psychology, and interacting with the chat and everything. And from there, it just kind of never stopped. And I just kept doing commentary, and thanks to Vi creating Level Up series at that, after that initial garage gathering, I got to do a bunch of commentary for their events, and it just kind of kept growing because I was doing it week after week at Wednesday night fights. And yeah, that's basically how I became a commentator. I mean, I was doing all sorts of things in fighting games before that, but now, obviously, commentary is what most people know me for.
Yeah, I think everyone that ends up in fighting game commentary doesn't necessarily start there,
Yeah, exactly.
But I do have to ask, like, what was it about Street Fighter II Warrior that really pulled you in the first place?
You mean just like Street Fighter?
Yeah. Like, what made you just like want to keep returning to this game?
It was honestly a lot of the depth of the game. I mean, we had all played like these random beat 'em up games. Like before Street Fighter 2, there was a game called Pit Fighter, and like you were fighting bosses and you couldn't use any of these characters. And then comes along Street Fighter 2, where the characters you're fighting against, you could actually pick them. And that was novel. And then secondly, the control of the game was just, there was a lot of depth to it. There was just so much ability to control and do a lot of things. And keep in mind, I didn't even play against people at first. At the local arcade that, I started going to afterwards, we mostly played against the computer a lot. But the game was just beautiful. I mean, at the time, it was a graphic masterpiece. I mean, we hadn't seen anything like it. The sprites were gigantic, the characters were clear, and like I said, what really kind of elevated the game was the depth. We started discovering combos, I mean, all sorts of crazy stories. Like, we had to learn how to do dragon punches consistently. I didn't even believe Zangief could do the spinning pile driver. I thought it was a computer only thing because it was so powerful that they wouldn't give it to people. And then one day we accidentally found it because, there's no internet. There was nobody for us to ask. And me and my brother found it and we were like, oh my God, it's just like the game. Then you discover 2-in-1s. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
like Guile got the 3-hit combo, or like the read dizzies in the corner, and it's just like the game kept growing. Like it never stopped. It never staled, and there was something about that. And then once we started playing competitively and starting to really learn how the competitive aspect of the game worked, at that point in time, just the competitive juices just showed itself, and there was no turning back after that. It was basically what I mean. If you consider that video games started with Pong, it brought video games back to what they were always meant to be, which was a kind of a versus game. And so, yeah, I just, at that point, I was hooked, and it was too late for better or for worse.
I've got to say, I really love hearing your passion when you talk about these things. It's heartwarming.
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh, I was just about to say that's what keeps me doing it, honestly.
Yeah.
That's why I'm still here doing this, because I love fighting games, and I admire the players who are so good at the game so much, and that if I can help spread its popularity so other people can learn to appreciate the talent that these players have, that's the goal. That's the goal.
That really is heartwarming to hear. One thing I do want to ask is, like, what was it like transitioning from the small grassroots FGC that saw very small local tournaments to the international FGC we see today? Was there a moment where you were like, damn, when did this happen?
Actually, yeah. I can actually pinpoint the exact moment that things changed. I mean, there's a lot of things along the way, right? I mean, before all of the international stuff, it started out with local arcades. My arcade is better than yours. Then once people started traveling within their state and we figured out who the best in the state were, then it was, oh, this guy in Northern California is better than this guy in Southern California. Then once you got to the websites like Shoryuken.com, then it was people like, oh, East Coast is better. Like, it was always like that. And so it just kept growing. And it's really interesting that these days there's really not much of a question. Like, people are traveling. We know who the best is. Okay. Like, there's no qualms about it at this point in time. But, the moment that it really hit me, I still remember the first moment that I thought the potential was there. And that was, of course, the Daigo parry, which is super famous, among the internet. I was in the room. I almost wasn't, by the way, but I was there when it happened. And I just remember turning around after it happened, because the room was thundering. Like the auditorium that we were in was on a second floor. And so you could feel the floor shaking, and, when people were going nuts. And I wasn't even like watching the whole parry. As soon as the parry started happening and you could just hear the audience roar, I turned and looked back because I was sitting towards the front, and like, just like the pandemonium, like people were going insane. And that was the first moment I was like, there might be something to this. And then, no surprise, the moment that it really stuck out to me that, that this is a real international thing, and this is bigger than even I would have ever imagined. Same player. So the Daigo parry was Daigo versus Justin Wong. And then in 2009 at EVO, the grand finals of Street Fighter IV, the first year, was Daigo versus Justin Wong. And Justin Wong reset the bracket with a surprise Balrog pick, and then Daigo eventually won it and kind of but it was like the same rivalry, and the reason why that particular moment stood out to me so much was because in 2008 was probably the first Evo I had gone to that it felt like it shrunk in attendance. There were no new games. There was only the Street Fighter 4 beta there, and it didn't even seem all that impressive. The beta seemed like whatever. And so most people weren't really excited. And I still remember that year thinking to myself, maybe it's time to hang up the FGC thing, do the real life that we all end up going towards. It was just a natural conclusion that we would end up quitting and going to real life at some point. And I still remember in 2008, I was like, I recognize everybody here. There are no young faces. Like, this is going to die out because nobody new is showing up. And then in 2009, the audience like quadrupled because Street Fighter 4 was just, it rekindled something. And that grand finals, that audience was the first time I had seen a fighting game audience that big, and everybody was just glued to this. I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it right now. I'll be honest with you, but like, I just remember seeing it. And I remember even after the tournament was done, I used to help out with the Evo staff a lot. So you can even see, like, when Daigo wins 2009, like I think it was Tom standing next to Daigo, and you can see me going like, oh, raise his hand up in the air, raise his hand, because I'm like on the stage right there. And after the whole thing was over, I remember sitting in a chair, and I remember distinctly remembering the previous year and my thoughts of hanging it up and quitting. And that was the moment while I was sitting there after the whole event was that I'm just sitting there on a chair, and I'm like, I can't quit now. Like, I can't leave now. Like, we're just getting started here. And like, it was such a renaissance. It was like Phoenix, the Phoenix just rebirth. And at that point in time, I kind of just went in a lot more full bore at that point. So, and again, another moment where I never looked back.
That is genuinely really wonderful to hear. I know for a fact that just after Street Fighter 4 launched, we saw a lot of fighting games on the market, whether that was like remasters of older stuff like Darkstalkers or Marvel, or brand new titles. It felt like a renaissance, and then like the last few years since hasn't been such a renaissance. You can just look at Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite for that. Do you think that the FGC has become less strong since then?
Actually, I think it might be more strong than it's ever been. At first, Street Fighter is the game, right? It's like the game. And 5 came out very underwhelmingly. The release of 5 was not great. And at first, I thought that was going to be big trouble. But the nice thing about it is a lot of other companies stepped up. And, games like Tekken 7 became wildly popular at that point. And, it felt like it had the chance now. The other fighting games had a chance to kind of jump into the fold and really make names for themselves. And, honestly, like, the time where Street Fighter 2 was originally out, the original release of Street Fighter 4 might be considered like bigger moments. But right now, like, the games that are coming out are actually being designed to be competitive. Like, it's crazy that, we just had this panel thing where all the Japanese devs were on one screen. They were just talking about all their fighting games, and they brought up netcode, and they brought up like balance and all these things like that. And before, when fighting games came out, if a character was overpowered, it would be like, well, or might have even been intentional. There's one of the most famous stories of a player who played Blaze Blue named Breaker Dave. He was playing at an event that Mori, the director of Blaze Blue, was watching. He was watching Breaker Dave played, and there was a character named Kokanoe who was clearly overpowered. And Breaker Dave got into a match, was winning the match against the Kokanoe, and then the Kokanoe hit him once and then just set up the thing unblockable, whatever, dead. Like Breaker Dave just died instantaneously. And Breaker Dave's like, what the heck? And he turns around and he sees Mori just laughing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the devs they didn't understand the need for the balance and stuff. It was amusing for him. But then Mori saw the grand finals between Galileo and Dogura at Evo. And, you know, Dogura and his wife were planning to use, well, his now wife were planning to use the winnings to pay for the wedding and everything. He ended up losing in the most grueling match, with Dogura making comeback after comeback after comeback. And Dogura was just in tears after he won. And I had heard that after Mori witnessed that, he understood. And it like completely changed his perspective on how he wanted to develop fighting games. And so as a result now, I mean, like the Dragon Ball patch just came out and all the Dragon Ball fans are actually really excited about it. The Soul Calibur, another Soul Calibur patch came out just recently, and the game is in a really balanced state. Street Fighter V is actually, you know, despite what you hear, is a really balanced game. I mean, we've gone to a point where back in the day when I used to play Street Fighter 2, if we talked about a 6-4 matchup, that was a really even matchup. We were like, yeah, it's only 6-4. Nowadays, you talk to people like, oh my God, 6-4. Oh, this guy has such an advantage. Like the perception of what an unbalanced match has been warped because games are so well balanced. And you know, they're always listening to the players and seeing how to tweak characters to make things more fair. And so honestly, I feel like the fighting game community is in the best spot that it's ever been. Everyone always asks me, what do you think is the golden age of the fighting game community? And my answer is always right now.
Right now.
Because like, honestly, it feels like it's getting better now. Pandemic and scandals and all sorts of other things aside, yes. You know, that obviously is a loop, but that threw in a monkey wrench to everything.
Well, since you brought it up, I didn't want to or anything, but since you mentioned it, a pandemic is certainly a thing. And of course, that has meant fighting game tournaments across the world have been put on pause. Definitely a big blow, because I haven't been in the community for very long. I've actually been in it since the beginning of Street Fighter 5.
Okay.
Don't ask me why that was the fighting game that got me into fighting games, but it was. And I've been going to local tournaments in like the Birmingham, UK area for a few years, and I love seeing the local community get together, but also when there's a bigger tournament, which is like Capcom Cup or Tekken World Tour Series, when we have like international people come over. It's really, really exciting, both for the local community and everyone who's there. And of course, this year has been very, very disappointingly quiet on that subject. So do you want to tell me, what do you think of how COVID has affected the FGC in the short term and what we're going to see long term after this?
I mean, obviously, it's mostly bad, right? I mean, that you can't, it's a pandemic and we're all suffering here, especially us in the United States. I mean, let me tell you, I apologize on behalf of the rest of the world if our country seems crazy, but that's because it is right now.
Hey, I'm from England. I can't judge.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, it's so frustrating, but you know, the thing about it is obviously overall it's a bad thing. However, there are silver linings to take out of this, right? The positive of the whole pandemic really has been the focus on netcode, because fighting game netcode has been just abysmal. It's been unacceptable, but we've lived with it because most of the time we just played offline. You know, like you would gather and you would play offline and that would work. But now, like, for example, when Samurai Showdown came out, the new Samurai Showdown, I really, really liked the game and I wanted to play it more. The netcode is awful. Like, it's just, it's not even just the netcode. The lobby system is bad. It's hard to get matches and like they're not fixing it. And so like now I haven't played Samurai Showdown in months now, you know, because I just don't have the drive to deal with that kind of netcode. And I haven't played Samurai Showdown in months at this point in time. And that hurts because, like I said, I really liked it. I pushed it. I championed it. And, you know, it's frustrating. But, you know, now what's happening is the understanding for this need of rollback netcode. So there's this big whole thing in the FGC about rollback netcode and how that's specifically designed, if implemented correctly, because Street Fighter V does have rollback netcode, but it has a lot of flaws in it. So it creates a very unpleasant experience, which has led some people out there to believe that rollback netcode is worse. But trust me, implemented correctly, you get games like Killer Instinct, MK11, Skullgirls, them's Fighting Herds, etc., etc. And the netcode is just beautiful on some of those games. You can play another player halfway around the world and it feels great, And right now, for a lot of these delay-based netcode games, like Samurai Showdown, like Soul Calibur, Guilty Gear, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, the netcode just feels, I feel like I can't even play someone down the street sometimes. And the pandemic has kind of put the focus on that. I mean, before, the American devs were all implementing the rollback netcode. That's why MK11 has it. That's why KI had it. That's why Skullgirls had it. Fantasy Strike has it. But all the Japanese devs were not implementing it, except for Capcom. But like I said, they messed up the Street Fighter V one. But now these Japanese devs are all talking about rollback netcode. One of the developers tried Skullgirls Online, and like in English, he was like, I think I want to use rollback netcode, and then Fighting EX Layer switched from delay. They actually refactored their game to put in rollback netcode. Enough people asked for it in surveys for ArcSys that Guilty Gear Strive is now going to have rollback netcode. They originally had delay-based netcode. In fact, the beta for Guilty Gear Strive had the old netcode, and they had to say, this is the old netcode. We're working on ripping it out and putting in the new one, So now we're talking about this, and I think that's good. And we're also all getting kind of used to playing tournaments online, and that does allow us to find some strong players that never had the ability to travel before, so definitely it's opened up the world a little bit more. Also, like, you can see it right now. I do this myself. There's like this whole outside like cloud gaming parsec craziness that people are using to even just play some of these delay-based netcode games online. I've been doing it for Soul Calibur, and the Soul Calibur community really likes it. They feel like it's better than the actual netcode built into the game. But anything that comes out of this pandemic, really the positive is that this has really kind of put that focus on the netcode and made it loud enough, I think, for a lot of the Japanese devs to understand that in order to succeed in other countries where our internet infrastructure is awful, that we kind of need this kind of thing. On the other hand, though, I mean, if I did have to say like one of the worst things about the pandemic, I do want to say that, I feel the most bad for Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. Game just came out, beginning of the year, had a lot of promise, was very beginner friendly, has robust one-player mode, has a whole like experience system, great tutorials, like all this information was going to appeal to beginners and experts, and had all this stuff. And we've just never had a chance to have an offline tournament for it. And so this game that was supposed to make a huge impact in our community, a lot of people are talking about like it could be one of the next big things, has really not had a chance to make much of an impact. And it's really kind of sad, because when the game came out, I was really into it as well. But again, delay-based netcode, and I haven't played it much online because I can't deal with the delay-based netcode.
I completely agree, because I got Grand Blue Fantasy Versus earlier this year myself. I'm a huge fan. I really, really love the game. I have never, ever found a ranked match. I've never found a ranked match. And so in the European lobby system as well, even at launch, there were so few people playing it that the people from around Europe had to just be in the United Kingdom lobby. And these days, that lobby is empty. And breaks my heart. I actually went into a Japanese lobby to have a game for a change, and it was 12 frame delay, and I was like...
yeah.
So,
It's awful, but you're like, I'm playing online.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, I completely understand where you're coming through, Granblue. It deserves better, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And if it had rollback, maybe it would have had more of a chance to begin with.
Oh yeah.
Fingers crossed for Strive, though. That's the next one I'm looking forward to. Really hoping.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Other controversies have happened in the last year or so. We had quite a big sexual harassment scandal throughout the gaming community in general just a few months back. There's like another gaming Me Too moment where a lot of men and women in the community came forward about sexual harassment they faced in public places from certain individuals. We won't be naming names. That's unnecessary, and I'm sure people could find out about that on the internet if they wished. But it has resulted in some structural changes to some organizations such as Evo. It has definitely resulted in certain players being exodused from the community.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on how this is going to affect things short term, and also what do you think is going to change by the time things get back to normal and we can have tournaments again? I know it's a big question.
There's a lot of answers for different parts there. I mean, first of all, short term, obviously it looks bad.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh my gosh, all these people in positions of power were, doing terrible things.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, if we're looking at it a short term, that doesn't tell the whole story. I think what's more important to realize is that, like, for example, in the fighting game community, they've been talking a lot more about making a governing kind of body, not to determine like how tournaments are run or what rules, like, oh, this game should be 2 out of 3, whatever, but a governing body, overall governing body in terms of code of conduct and sticking to it. And I think that's important because I think one of the reasons why these things happen is because there was never really any adherence to any code of conduct. Everything seemed like it was an opinion. This person did something and they got a minor punishment. This person did something that was maybe not even as bad and they got a worse punishment because he's less popular in the community or something like that. There was a lot of kind of questions, and a lot of people, whenever any ruling tried to come down, people were like, what about this person? It's not fair. Like this. And so by really kind of hammering down on that, I think that makes it a lot stronger. Now, it has definitely raised a lot of questions like, oh my gosh, we're going to turn into 1984. It's going to be George Orwell and we're all going to have to like Big Brother is watching us and stuff. And I think that's over exaggerated. Like we just want to get to a point. We're not trying to restrict behavior. We're not trying to remove people. We're trying to welcome people. This is the goal, right? A lot of people talk about this as, oh, this person's getting banned. This person's getting banned. But the thing about it is, if somebody is out there known for being misogynistic or, sexually abusive or something like that, and they're banned from our community, that makes more people feel welcome. That makes it feel like a safer space. The reason that we're creating these things is we're trying to get it so that more people can show up, feel safe, and have a good time. One of the best examples of that is that one of the most popular tournaments on the fighting game circuit is Combo Breaker, run by Rick Thayer, aka the Hado. And he has made strives year after year after year. Anytime, he'll have places specifically designed that you can go and talk about like, oh, this person's like trying to sexually harass me, and he has like places that you can go, safe spaces basically to take care of yourself. And so 2019, which was the last year we managed to have a Combo Breaker thanks to the pandemic, but you go, like when I was there, it's very clear that his message is understood because everyone always talks about video game environments. It's like, oh, it's like 90% dudes and 10% women or whatever like that. I was at Combo Breaker, and the ratio of men to women there was one of the most blended that I've ever seen. And, that is because Rick and his whole entire staff has done such a good job making Combo Breaker. One of the big points about it is to be safe for everybody to go into, that this tournament will take the responsibility to remove this kind of, bad behavior and such. And so overall it's a net gain, and that's kind of how we have to look at this. So while all these scandals are happening, we're removing a lot of these people from these positions of power. We're removing a lot of these people from the community. And the hope really is that we're just going to be a better community, and more people will feel welcoming. So, yeah, it's bad. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, oh, that was terrible, but look, we're great now. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
like, you want to be upfront and be completely open about, yes, this was terrible. And it's our fault that we let it get that way. And now it's our time to try to do something different. Leaders of the community have to do something different to make it more welcoming. And so, to address something, that you said, and I'm not picking on you in particular. Everybody says this, when we get back to normal, the whole thing is we don't want to get back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get back to better. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's kind of the way I feel about this right now. Normal wasn't good. We want to get back to better right now, or we just want to get to better. Back to better doesn't make any sense, but
I think it works. I think it works.
Yeah. But that's kind of the goal. And, especially with the pandemic too, I don't think anything's going to be normal again, but I want it to be better. I want people to be better. I want the community to be more welcoming. And, that's always been one of my goals. And, it's a tough position to be in because there's a lot of people who don't want change out there, regardless of the reason. But we have to do our best to facilitate these changes because we don't want these kind of scandals to just pop up out of nowhere and catch us by surprise anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, because the worst thing about it too is, like, for example, one of the people who just recently was found out as having terrible history and stuff was a person that I had considered a good friend. And a lot of people have been like, oh, you must have known James and da 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 da, all this stuff. I mean, I had no idea, and it's disappointing and it's shocking. And I just want to get to a point where we don't have to have that happening. I don't want to get shocked by this anymore. I don't want to see someone who I've considered a really close friend for over a decade, turn out to be someone who's done awful things. And it's like it's a tough situation to deal with, and so I don't want that anymore. I don't want that anymore. So if we can make our community a better place, obviously there's going to be a lot of people who are still going to be hiding secrets and skeletons in their closet and stuff, but you can't do anything about that. But if we can make it so that we punish the people who, I mean, punish is a harsh word, but proper repercussions to the people who violate other people's safety, comfort, that kind of thing, and then make it more welcoming for people to show up. That's the end goal. That really is the end goal.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. And I'm really happy to hear you say that you want the community to be better. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I because one thing that I think people in gaming communities all the time kind of have to deal with, because FGC isn't isolated in saying that it has like sexual harassment issues at certain times. We've even seen like Ubisoft has apparently managerial structure issues, So this isn't an isolated case, and I think too often the best case scenario is things to go back to it was before things were revealed, and that isn't what we want from the FGC. So I'm really happy to hear you say that. Like you said, that Combo Breaker has some like really good implementation of safe spaces for people to feel more comfortable. Are you hoping to see more things like that widespread in tournaments in the future?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, if we can somehow take a lot of the things that Rick does, and like I said, I mean, Rick deserves a lot of the credit because he's the guy who's created Combo Breaker. The vision is his and everything. He'll tell you straight up that there's so many people involved with it, and he's right. So I don't want to like take the credit away from other people, but Rick and his team, they have done a lot of wonderful things with that event, and to make it feel as personable and comfortable as possible. And I would love it if people just looked at that event and just like straight up copied it. Like Rick would probably be the first person to be like, you want to copy this? Here's my document. Boom. Like copy everything here. Do this, he'd be the first person that want to implement that kind of thing. And if we can get it to that point, yeah, absolutely. Because like I said, when you're at Combo Breaker, there is a visible difference, like night and day with other tournaments. And and yeah, and I think that's wonderful because obviously the FGC has had like basically what am I trying to what word I'm trying to get the word out of my head. They've had a lot of like misogynistic problems. Women haven't been treated necessarily as well in the FGC. There's still a lot of issues going on in that kind of vein. And I know a lot of women who were very good at fighting games and they eventually just left because it just wasn't worth their time dealing with a lot of the crap that they had to go through at events, being called unnecessarily, graphic insults and, just it's frustrating. And, people always want to tell you, oh my gosh, you know what, guys get it just as bad. We talk smack to everybody. And it's like,
yeah,
dude, it's not the same. No. It's not the same. And, it sucks. I don't want my community to feel like an unsafe space for anybody. I want it to feel welcoming to me because like I said, that's my whole goal. I want to show how wonderful our community is to everybody. But, once we found out about all this stuff, I am not going to sit here and go, well, they don't count. Our community is wonderful. No, our community is not as wonderful as I would have wanted it to be. And so the better we do this, maybe we can actually get the community to be as wonderful as I would hope it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you aware of any discussions about future events and what they might be implementing?
I am not well ensconced in that whole decision-making thing because I just feel like a lot of other people are going to be much smarter about the whole thing than I am. But there are definitely talks between a lot of the major tournament organizers and important, figureheads in the community discussing, new code of conduct and kind of things. And even just recently, during one of the Capcom online events, one of the players got really upset at a loss, verbally abused the TO, verbally abused one of the other players. And trust me, in the past, it would have just been like, okay, he apologized afterwards and everything was kind of like fine. He apologized to the player and everybody was like, cool. But then the tournament still gave him a penalty. It was a small penalty, but a lot of people are like, what, but again, at first I didn't like it. I was like, why would you punish? They were apologizing. Everything's all good. But the question was asked to me, what's the point of a code of conduct if we don't enforce the code of conduct? And so literally says on the code of conduct, if you verbally abuse TOs, tournament organizers and stuff, you will get a penalty. And if we let people off all the time, we're not going to change. And so once someone explained that to me, I was like, yeah, okay. I'm behind the punishment now. Like I completely 180'd on it. And, we are trying our best to do stuff. Obviously that brought up a lot of the issues of then the whole, oh my God, now you can't do this here. Now you gotta, again, like, it's just, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast or anything.
Do it a little bit. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just don't be an asshole to other people. That's all it comes down to, right? We're not making it so that like pop-offs, like if you win and you like get in someone's face and you're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like that's cool. But just like, don't like start berating somebody personally or whatever, like just, treat other people with respect. If you have a rivalry with them, keep it within the game. Don't take it outside of the game. We don't want to lose that because FGC is full of amazing personalities. It's one of my favorite things about the fighting game community. I never want to lose that. I don't ever want to lose the pop-offs and that kind of stuff. But, you know, once you take it further beyond that, and once you start becoming personal, or you start becoming sexist or racist or any of those kind of things, you know, you have to draw a line. You do have to draw a line. And that's kind of where I draw. That's the line that I draw. And, you know, we can have a colorful community, but again, I just don't want to make it so that, you know, uh, I like to see that people are getting repercussions for breaking that kind of code of conduct thing. And, you know, if we are consistent with that, then people know what they will get punished for, and they won't think maybe I'll get away with it because it's been so wishy-washy in the past. And, you know, it sets a precedent. It sets a precedent and a nice example and a hard line that, look, we're enforcing the code of conduct now. We're going to be consistent with it. The code of conduct is there for everybody to read. So you know exactly what you can or cannot do, you know? And so that's important. And so I am starting to see a little bit more of that. And I am assuming, you know, if, you know, at the rate our country's going, like 15 years from now, when we finally get offline tournaments, you know. Oh man, no. But whenever we get back to offline tournaments, yeah, for sure. You know, I would hope that these kind of code of conducts and a lot more of this stuff that like Combo Prager implements are a little bit more enforced, because I think that would make us a better community overall.
Yeah. So basically, people need to measure their salt, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this is coming from me too. I get really salty. I have so many rage clips that have gotten popular on the internet, and that's, you know what, that's the way it works. But as long as you keep it in the game, as long as you don't make it personal, you know, salt is a part of the learning process and the growing process. But, you know, just like I said, just don't be a jerk to other people. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, a little part of me does understand where you mentioned the guy that was swearing at the TOs a bit, but then apologized.
Yeah.
I understand where he's coming from, because at my very first fighting game tournament, which was actually Smash Brothers, my very first tournament, I got knocked out of winner's bracket, and I might have shouted, "Oh, you f***ing." But and like immediately after, I was like, "It's a good game, though. It's a good game. Shake my hand."
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm as salty as it gets. I can get. I mean, like I said, I have so many clips of me just being emotionally distraught over fighting games. That's why at first I didn't agree with the repercussions that he got, because I was like, dude, I totally get the salt. I totally get it. But then, like I said, once they kind of explained it to me about the, you know, we need to enforce code of conduct, we need to be consistent, and I was like, yeah, okay, that's true. That's true. Just because I have the empathy towards the salt doesn't necessarily make it okay. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. I completely understand that. I think we probably covered that topic pretty well. So I have to ask, is the CRT an NES for Tetris?
Yes, it is. At one point in time, so, you know, obviously I know we talked about this a little bit, that I've done commentary for Tetris before, and there's a lot of high level techniques on NES Tetris that I know that I don't understand to the degree that I should. So I wanted to see how close I could get to maxing out on NES Tetris. So I got that. I got like a, you know, a VGA to HDMI converter.
Wow. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so I started trying to play it, and, you know, speaking of salt, like I would play and I just kept getting mad at the RNG. And then the other thing too is like, you know how sometimes when you play a racing game and you hold the A button and you can feel yourself pushing it harder as if you feel like it's going to make you go faster, but it really doesn't. So the original NES pad here, you know, the tips of the pad are very sharp. And like I would hold the pad and I would push harder on it because I want the piece to move faster, but it's not going to. And like literally after like 2 or 3 sessions, my thumb was like super numb. And it like stayed that way for like 3 days. So I was like, I'm gonna, we'll hold back on this, but for sure, I still have a goal of trying to get as close as I can to a max out at some point. I just haven't picked it up again recently, but that is 100% why it's there.
Yeah, I find that very, very honorable. I was just hanging out with my friend one day. We were browsing YouTube, saw a Tetris championship happening, clicked it, and we both looked at each other and said, "Is that James Chen? Can I hear James Chen?" So. I've got to say, I'm really, really pleased to see you involved in so many different games. Are there any other games I should know about? Does it stop at fighting games and Tetris, or is there more?
Honestly, I never intended to go beyond fighting games. People are like, well, you could probably make more money on League of Legends or all this other stuff. But I was like, fighting games are my passion. This is what I want to show the world. I'm sticking to fighting games. The thing is, my favorite video game of all time is Tetris. Okay, so I love Tetris. I'm obsessed with the game. I've been playing it ever since the original NES Tetris came out, 3 decades ago or whatever, And what happened was we just started playing Tetris DS at some of the Wednesday night fights that Vi was running, the weeklies that we got together. We would play Tetris DS and go up against each other. And one of my friends who was playing in that pointed me to a Facebook post that, hey, a bunch of people are auditioning for a commentator for Tetris. And I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know this was a thing. I'm a commentator. I love Tetris. I'm totally down to do this. And so I auditioned for it. And my favorite story about it was, I sent in a demo, kind of just talking about it and everything like that. And they're like, this is pretty good. And, you're that fighting game guy. So let's bring you on for this exhibition. And what's funny, they announced it on their Facebook page, like, we're bringing James Chen on here, blah, blah, blah. And one of the posts on the Facebook was like, this is like, why would you do this? Is obviously just a stunt hiring. Like, what does he know about Tetris? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I did this little exhibition. And then afterwards, I went over there and I messaged the guy and I was like, I hope it was okay. Right? Because I was like, I do enjoy Tetris. I hope it was okay. And the guy literally responded with, no, you knew what you were talking about. It's all good. And so after I did that exhibition, the guys running it were like, that was fantastic. You want to come and do our championship thing that we do in Oregon every year? And I was like, yes, because I knew about that Tetris convention. I knew about that gathering and I'd always wanted to go and I just never been able to go. And now they wanted me to go to do commentary. I was like, heck yeah. And I went there and oh man, I had a blast. It was just, it was so fantastic. And like I said, I had never intended to do anything besides fighting games. But like I said, Tetris is a passion of mine. It's one of my favorite video games of all time. And it's funny because of all the videos on YouTube, I think more people have actually seen me do commentary for Tetris than fighting games. Even to the point where this is totally this is a fangirl moment for me, right? Tetris likes to retweet all these, the group guys like to retweet all the comments that people have on Twitter about, Tetris. And the Classic Tetris World Championships got on ESPN. And one of the people that actually talked about it was Ming-Na Wen, voice of Mulan from the original cartoon Mulan, Melinda May in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I love her to death. She was one of the first Asian actresses to really kind of, get out there and represent our ethnicity and stuff. And she had a tweet that was like, oh my God, I'm watching this Tetris thing and this is amazing, right? And she's like, this is so fascinating. And I responded to her tweet. I'm like, I can't believe that Ming-Na Wen has now heard me do commentary, that I can prove this. And she responded to me. She was like, you guys killed it and everything. And so I was like, oh my God, Ming-Na Wen responded to me on Twitter. Oh my God. And so it's actually really funny. But honestly, I feel like more people have probably seen me do Tetris commentary than fighting game commentary, which, if that's the case, can't can't be a better game than Tetris. Let's put it that way.
I completely agree. I guess I'm just going to ask you one last question since we've been going on for longer than I thought we had. But since you mentioned wanting to stay to the FGC, what do you think of commentators that do a fair amount of genre hopping? Because just as a personal thing, I knew of a UK commentator who caught some flack a year or two ago because he sort of jumped from Counter-Strike and being a very good Counter-Strike commentator to Street Fighter and not necessarily, being used to the FGC fundamentals. And that did catch some ire of some of the people in the community, including other local commentators. What do you think of things like that?
I think I remember that. I think I remember that. I mean, like I said, to me, people like to come up to me and ask me, like, I want to be a commentator. What's your advice for commentary? What's your advice for commentary? And I've learned this, the hard way myself. The number one that I give to everybody is just make sure you love the game that you're commentating. Because I have heard commentators commentate games that they don't like. Mm-hmm. And there was one particular fighting game that I didn't like, which was Street Fighter Cross Tekken. I never clicked with that game, and I just really detested a lot about the way that the game worked. But because that game came out when commentary was kind of early, Capcom just hired me and Ultra David, to do the commentary for it and stuff. Like maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, someone put a highlight reel of the greatest Street Fighter Cross Tekken moments because they were the fans of it. And a lot of the commentary was me because I was just on there by default. And I was just listening to it, and I was like, if I was a fan of this game, I'd be so pissed off at me because you could kind of tell a lot of things I was saying were like backhanded compliments. Maybe I could tell because I kind of remember my mindset as I was listening to it and everything. And I was just like, this is awful. And I told myself, I'm never going to do this again. And so if you want a genre hop, if you want to go from Street Fighter to Tetris, another game that I've commentated recently is Teppen, the CCG on mobile. Right. And that's because I started playing it and I just became obsessed with the game. I play it like every night, and it's kind of bad. But I'm obsessed with the game, and like that's just the thing. If you want to jump between genres, or if you want to even jump between games within the community, just make sure you love the game that you're commentating, because that's going to come through your voice. So, for example, I'd never watched Dragon Ball growing up. I have no affinity to Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball FighterZ came out, and I wasn't even a big fan of the game itself. I have never tried really commentating that. I think I've commentated that game once, and that was just, we were at a tournament. They needed commentators, and they were like, you and David, here, jump on here, and we did the commentary for it. But I have never tried to do Dragon Ball commentary since then, because I know there's so many people out there who do love the game, who love the lore. And right now, you see Tyrant UK and Damascus now being hired directly by Bandai Namco to do these shows where they do the reveals. They just did one this past weekend. And, you can tell that these guys love the game and they love the lore, just like that they'll talk about the Dragon Ball lore. And, I don't want to take that away from anybody else as a person who's never watched Dragon Ball. So I'm not going to, it's just one of those things. Like, even within my genre, I'm not going to jump into something that I know that I don't have this kind of passion for. I don't have all the knowledge, the technical knowledge of a game like Soul Calibur 6. But recently, I mean, not recently, but when the game came out, I started playing, was the first Soul Calibur I've ever played. And I love the game, and I love the game. And I started doing commentary for it, and the community, even though they knew I didn't have the knowledge for it, they kept wanting me to do commentary for it because they could just tell how excited and just how much fun. And some of the top players, like, I had stopped doing commentary for it because I was just like, I'm not keeping up with the game. I'm not knowledgeable enough. And one of the guys, top players, like, said to me, was like, are you coming back to do commentary for us? And I was like, I don't think I know the game well enough. And he's like, we don't care. Like, we we like your passion, we like your energy and everything like that. And since then I've gotten back into it, and I'm really delving into it. And even though I don't necessarily have the technical knowledge of a lot of the game, just because I just need more experience playing the game a lot more, and fighting games are hard to learn. That's just the nature of them. But I get enough of it that I can recognize what's crazy, and then they hear it when I just like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that.
Yeah.
And as long as you do that, as long as you love what it is you're commentating, I don't care. You can jump from anything to anything. One of the commentators from Southern California, Ringe, has been an NJPW fan his whole entire life. And at CEO, they actually had that NJPW tie-in one year. And a bunch of the other commentators all basically said, no, you get to do this. And it was like a dream come true for him. And, it wouldn't matter what he did. It's just he got to do it. He loved it. He went from video games to live wrestling, but, he loves it. And that will always come through in the voice and the passion. And that's the most important thing. So again, hop all the genres you want, do it because you have a passion for the thing that you're jumping to. And that to me is the only criteria, frankly. So
honestly, it sounds an awful lot like being a streamer, because just passion and personality are number one. Skills, not so much. Passion and personality.
And you have to not get super salty too, because on my stream, I'll get mad, and it's really uncomfortable watching me get upset. So I have to learn to curb that, because, like, seriously, like, sometimes when I'm like down on myself, it's like, Jay, is he okay? Like, did he just like lose all faith in humanity? What the hell? So, you have to be careful a little bit. So.
Yeah. Sometimes people enjoy that, though. I used to stream a while back, and I was playing Tekken 7, and a king player grappled me and grappled me and grappled me and grappled me, and I was basically just sat here screaming, and just like I had like 5 people in my chat, and that was it, and they were just typing ha 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 ha.
I mean, one of my most famous clips now is me as a king player losing, and just losing it. Like, my whole world shattered there, and like there was obscenities everywhere, and I was just screaming, and then I'm just sitting there like my whole soul was crushed, and like it was like so crazy. And it's funny too, because the next day I streamed Tekken, I had like 1,000 people on my stream, which is more than I'd ever seen before in my life. And I didn't get as mad, and so I think people left. I should have kept it up.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to be really outraged.
Yeah,
that helps. Okay, so I think we've talked about everything we want to. But James, before we finish off, is there anything you would like to say to the viewers out there?
I mean, I guess, like, I love fighting games, and if you enjoy fighting games, you like fighting games as well. I mean, you're kind of casually involved. Let me guide you into the world, into the world of the fighting game community. That's kind of what I've kind of dedicated myself to do these days. So, I mean, I'll plug my social medias. It's, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, everything. Well, Instagram is just my cats. It's just I mean, look, I'm just gonna. This guy.
Ah, here we go.
Yeah, it's one of the cats. The other one's over there right now.
This is the good content we wanted.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, everything is Chensor, JCHENSOR. And I'll try my best to make fighting games wonderful for you and to explain it. I try to make as much beginner-friendly content as I can and really help a lot of people. Like, me and David have been running a beginner tournament for players so that they feel like they can play in a tournament and not just get 0-2 every single time. Like, some people come in, they're like, I thought I would go 0-2, but I made top 8. And they're like, it's ecstatic, it's thrilling, and you get the joy out of the fighting games that way. And that's, like I said, that's all I wanted to do is just to bring the joy of fighting games to the public, to the people. The way that I've always explained it to people is, if you watch a Sports Center clip and you see LeBron James dribble down the court and he just like dunks over everybody, you don't have to understand basketball. You just assume it's amazing. And you're like, holy crap, that was awesome. But a lot of times when you watch fighting games, it's really sometimes hard to see why something was amazing. I just want to help get to the point where you can see a clip of a fighting game and just be like, holy crap, that was amazing. I don't, because there's so much talent, there's so much skill, there's so much mental fortitude in fighting games. And I just want, people out there to appreciate that kind of thing. And so that's hopefully what I can do. Or if you like Tetris, follow me as well. So
all the important things in life. That's beautiful. Exactly. I will leave link to James's Twitter and Instagram in the description below because you need to see those cats. Very important.
No, like you could also follow me on Twitch because obviously with the pandemic and everything like that, it's one of the places that I'm trying to make up for lost gigs and stuff.
Yes, I can imagine.
Oh man.
Yeah. So we'll definitely have links to Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch in the description below. James, thank you so much for talking with me. I've been really looking forward to this, and I'm glad we managed to arrange time.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm telling you right now, I know you feel bad keeping me up late. It's 2 a.m. my time. Trust me, I would be up. I'll be up for the next 4 hours. There's nothing for you to worry about at all.
Thank you so much for joining me. And for all of our viewers out there, please make sure to stay tuned to WCCFtech TV and WCCFtech Interviews, where we will be talking to a range of people from throughout the gaming industry and the YouTube industry as a whole. Thank you, James, and thank you all for watching.